daughter's was so sensitive to the blue light coming off the screen that she was causing her horrible insomnia.
I know.
Okay, we're getting official here. It's 7:04 and we'll call the meeting to order. I see no one from the public here, so we have no public comments. Approval of minutes from last meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I just made one minor typo, literally minutes ago.
I just saw that.
It said distract instead of district under the board.
I did that last time,
Yeah.
and then I copied it over and did not correct
I was
it.
like, did I do this again?
No.
Yeah, okay.
So
Yeah.
do I have approval for the minutes as amended?
I move to approve the minutes as amended.
And I second. Vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the minutes are approved. Reports and information, Nancy, take
Okay.
it away.
Well, as you can see, we're now open full hours. So we have changed our hours slightly from what they used to be. We are during Monday through Thursday now 9 to 8 instead of 10 to 9 because we had done kind of an informal study pre-COVID and found that we had just about as many staff members as patrons from 8 to 9. But we always had a line at the door in the morning of people wanting to get in before 10. So folks are slowly figuring it out. So it's funny because the first few days, nobody came at 9, and then now we're seeing people 9:30, 9:45 at least that are figuring out that we're open. So 9 to 5 on Friday and Saturday, and then 1 to 5 on Sunday, and those will now be the same hours all year long. They used to change between Labor Day and Memorial Day, super confusing for everyone. So that was something that was commented on in our first feasibility study, is please keep the hours the same and keep Sunday off here. So Sunday's been quiet the first few Sundays that we've been open. Saturday's been nuts. Evening's still relatively quiet, but people will kind of get in the groove of what the new hours are pretty soon.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Are you moving up any programming then also, to earlier hours?
That is the plan. When we are back to more in-person programming for kids,
Yeah.
the plan is that it's more conducive to doing story times in the morning. So we will probably be able to do a 9:30 and a 10:30 before we only had one story
Yeah.
time in the morning, and then in the afternoon, kids nap, they'll times, or else they're cranky. So
Yeah.
So yes, we are hoping to move programming up earlier. We have a pretty sizable segment of the population that likes to, including me, who likes to get out early and do things. So
They are awake.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you might not be even awake for 3 hours, so you might as well go out.
we usually find we have a bunch of seniors and a bunch of kids that are awake and willing to
Yeah.
So that was the impetus for that. Because of those open hours, or leading toward those open hours, we had kept some temp positions open, non-benefited positions open for quite a while when we weren't open all of our hours. Now we've hired 3 pages, 2 shelvers, 2 library technicians, and 1 in adult services and 1 in children's. But those are all temp, no benefits. Most of them are anywhere between 10 and 15 hours, but they're kind of fill-ins at the desks. So we need them. So that's, we have a few of them in place so far, training, and a few more still to train. We do have 1 more service point, which is our new teen area, which we would like to staff in the afternoons, evenings, and weekends, because that's when the teens are there. And so far, we don't have staff to do that. So people have just been running back and forth from the children's room when we see people in there. So,
Are those FTEs in the budget? Or
they're
just
temps.
staff?
They're in our temp budget. We have. It's not they aren't positions that we that we have to request from city council. Those are temp. So those are considered. Some are seasonal. Some are just temp fill-ins, no benefits, and has to be under 20 hours. So, and we have a separate temp budget than our regular staffing budget. For example, we always have more temps in the summer with children's when it's not COVID because of summer reading programs, which normally have thousands of kids and take some extra manpower to handle all of them. I don't know why I put security down here. The other security issue I can think of at the moment is that our security system is somewhat problematic, and part of it is that we've worn the keypad out and it's so archaic that it's no longer available. So our tech had to go searching on eBay to try and find something that would
Oh, no.
work. It's the same kind of thing we ended up with the blinds a couple years ago, where all the blinds folks that came out, the company was out of business. They all came out and said, no, you need $10,000 worth of new blinds. And we ordered 3 remote controls on eBay, and Jason spliced them together, and voila.
Wow.
So we're getting to that point where we do have some systems in the building that are too old to fix. So hopefully that'll fix, because our little away button that we use when we leave the library is stuck like glue. So our alarm has gone off at interesting times because the button will stick and then unstick. So they're working on it now though. Masking orders, it's been, today was a really good day. It's been a tough couple weeks with the masking mandate. We've had some folks that have chosen to argue about it kind of before we even open our mouths, and you know, you can't tell me what to do, and it's not my mandate, and et cetera. So I think the staff's done a really good job of talking to people about it and letting them know that you really do need to have this mask on, and that we would like to stay open. So we would not like an outbreak to happen at the library. So please put your mask on and keep it on. It's more a question of walking past people, and the minute you walk past, there's the mask down below. So it's a constant reminder. We have Jake, our security person, and Sherry, who's our evening person, and then I make rounds of the building twice in the morning and twice in the afternoon, normally just to go up and remind folks. I guess my funniest interaction was the man that told me, I wish you would just stop reminding me about this. I said, and if you had your mask on, then I would be doing it. So it is mostly an issue in tight spaces like our temp computer lab that we have set up before we're able to move our computer lab where we want it to go, because it is a relatively small space, and we have a couple people who have claimed a medical exception, which of course we cannot question, who are in there, and you know, we never know whether they have a medical condition or not. And so it's been kind of a little bit of a struggle between the maskers and the non-maskers. But
I'm curious, what percentage of patrons are doing that? Wow.
You know, today it was almost none. Downstairs in children's, it's almost none. When I do my rounds upstairs, more often than not, it's 2 or 3 up there. Sometimes it's as many as 8 to 10 that don't have a mask on. But today everybody had one on. So I'm hoping that that's a sign that we're going in the right direction, but I don't know.
Has anyone been threatening this stuff?
One person, I don't know if I would say he was threatening, but he was sure angry, you know, yelling at the face and trying to go behind the desk. And so you know, we've had a few, but most of the time we just say, you know, you need to finish your business, and you're going to need to leave if you won't wear a mask. And you know, to the one gentleman, I said, you're going to have to leave now because you're screaming at staff. So not as often. It's not as bad as we thought it would be compared to what I've heard from some other libraries. So, but then we have other folks that you know, want us to be more strict and say, you know, why don't you have restrictions in the children's department, or are you asking for vaccine cards for children because the children can't be vaccinated, et cetera. So it's kind of a mix of people.
Is the city looking at doing a vaccine mandate?
You know, I don't think so necessarily, but I think everybody's going to wait on a kind of a holding pattern right now, seeing whether or not that that regulation that applies to businesses, and if you have over 100, you know, if you're employing 100 people, et cetera, then there's a vaccine mandate. Don't know if it applies to municipalities. I don't think that that's been cited, or whether or not it will apply to staff. That would be staff, though, not public. That would be potentially a vaccine mandate or require weekly testing, but that's not on our horizon at the moment.
I don't think there's been any written
There's
guidance
nothing
that's
out
come
there.
from the Fed
Yeah,
at all.
yeah.
Uh,
I've heard some chatter about it, but there's nothing concrete at all. So,
I'll be surprised when it comes. If there isn't something like this, that if you take a federal dollar, you'll comply with.
And
the
that's
federal dollar.
what the discussion has been, whether, and most cities and counties take federal dollars, so,
If I was the president,
yeah.
That's his big stick, that's for sure.
And that would be, obviously you wouldn't force people necessarily to have the vaccine if they're really anti-vaccine, but they would have to be probably legally tested, so. I have noticed that, today in the news there were mention of multiple testing sites reopening that had closed.
Oh, good.
So, I think the Heart of Longmont site is still open, and that's 7 days a week, so, and drive through or walk up. But I think I just saw something about the fairground site opening up again, so.
Do
Anyway,
you feel like Jake and Sherry have the right skill set to help you with that?
yes, I do.
Oh, good. Okay. So they have your back.
Oh, yeah, I mean, they're both really good.
Good.
They know the patrons, and we went over, I sent, kind of mini scripts out to staff, and we've been doing a lot of coaching. Just saying, here's how you approach this, if someone says this, here's what you should say, et cetera. So we try and help folks out. And then, obviously, that's for the frontline staff, but if anyone gives them any hassle, then they're supposed to immediately contact Jake, me, or a supervisor. I just don't want to put our frontline staff in that position.
Yeah.
So they've been in a bad position for a year and a half now, so.
I know, it's really a huge ask.
So, like I said, today was a good day, so. We're not closed yet, but it's been a good day.
I think we're gonna hear from health insurers.
Yep.
Say
Yeah.
there's gonna be a differential cost. Unvaccinated, you're gonna pay X.
I think that's
Vaccinated, you're gonna pay something
probably
else.
true.
It's already happening.
Delta doing that? Or?
United
Yeah,
started.
United.
It
$200
was
a
United.
Yeah.
Yeah.
$200 more per month.
Yeah.
If you don't have a vaccine.
That's a lot to be in the ICU.
Yeah, that's a lot. We're also facing some other weird COVID things. We're still waiting for the liner that's supposed to go in the drain system in the keyhole in the children's department. That was on back order to finish off that space. They have a drain system that they put in there because it didn't used to drain. We used to get the kind of ice dam and snow buildup, which is a problem. So, still waiting on that. There's still some work to be done at the back staff entrance and the loading dock in the back, but that can't be done yet. We have some, old rusty chains and things back there that are not up to code, but that can't be done yet because we don't have the materials, so they're still in back order. So whether that'll be done in the fall or the spring remains to be seen because there's concrete that has to be a part of that, et cetera. And it's, at some point it's not going to stay hot like this. So, and also for libraries, the big deal is the new paper shortage. So we're not talking toilet paper. This is a nationwide and beyond paper shortage, and it's affecting everything from people trying to get their wedding invitations to books, definitely. Definitely copy paper, things like that. They've already gone up considerably in price. So we were giving out X amount of free copies to folks who came in, and we're giving half the amount we were before. Publishing, it's a big deal.
My tablet though.
I'm taking this to school. They told us we'd have no paper until December.
Oh, so it's
We've
Wow.
actually had official letters from our book wholesalers and advising us to get our orders in now or we won't get the bestseller stuff. Normally, publishing goes in cycles, and normally there's a pretty big fall cycle leading up to holidays, et cetera, of a lot of best-selling authors, and now they said that the amounts that they're bidding in are limited. So prices are going up, and
Will that affect digital material? Do you
No.
think that'll apply?
no, I mean, or if it does, it may, but it'll be a trickle-down thing. And actually, some of that's what some of the digital publishers are saying. Hey, not affected by paper, come by us. So we had already, until COVID never goes away, we had already shifted a much larger percentage of our purchases over the last year and a half to digital materials. And are still juggling what the demand is between print and digital. But definitely more demand for digital than there was before. And a lot of folks that didn't used to indulge in ebooks and e-audio became fans during COVID, and their liking for those digital materials has increased definitely. Because a lot of folks have told us anecdotally, they just said, hey, I never was into ebooks or e-audio books until COVID, and now I love them. So, but a lot of folks still like the print books and we're still ordering print books, it's just, our prices are definitely gonna go up. As far as the print materials go though, even with this, even though we put a request in the budget for to kickstart pre-processing, we have done some small orders with a vendor so far just to see how that looks, what that means. It's for fiction so far. What that means is that we are not physically putting on each little stamp, sticker, barcode, RFID tag, and Mylar or plastic cover. I was very surprised when I first got to this library that all of that was still being done by hand, because I hadn't seen it done by hand in a really long time. Because the vendors do it very inexpensively. It's actually more expensive for us to pay staff and buy materials to do those things than to have the vendors do it. So that's what we're looking into, and yes, it will free up some staff time once we get into that. No, we don't have staff, and we don't have a ton of staff to spare. So it's good that it'll free up staff time, because a lot of our same folks that do that technical services are the only people that work in our computer lab right now. So we're a little short on. We haven't been back to full hours for a while, and we forgot how thinly staffed we were. So paper shortage was not a good thing for us. So that's for libraries in general. So that was what I had mostly to report, except for the budget update.
Any questions on that for the budget? Okay, let's jump into the budget.
Okay, well, I don't have a huge update until, unfortunately, since we're early, and the city council meeting is until tomorrow. So it's basically all the same budget things that we talked about before. I guess, there are many things that made it through in the budget, both ongoing and one-time expenses that I was very pleased with, and the things that I wasn't as pleased with were the 3 positions that are not going through. So for us at this point, I know it's tough because the city can't just keep adding and adding and adding positions, but for us it's just difficult to function. Our FTE has not gone up appreciably in a lot of years, and when I look at our
How long, Nancy?
I can get you the info. I don't think it's gone up at all really measurably since 2013. And so
That would be really helpful.
But when I look at, I have the whole chart, but when I look at the amount of programs that we now do and the technology that we now handle and some of the other things that have been added, it's just tough to keep up. So yeah, I put together for the consultant charts that are actually, it's actually 11 years of all those stats comparative with us, Loveland, Boulder. We're kind of half discounting 2020 because 2020, the stats are not very meaningful from 2020.
Yeah.
But just looking at the other stats and another stat that was interesting to me in comparing those things rather, is that our FTE of professional librarians is extremely low compared to other libraries. And that's because that's where we've made cost savings by hiring folks to be library assistants or library technicians in lieu of hiring master's degree librarians because they're more expensive. So we have 11 and Boulder has 26, I think. So, and Loveland even has 14 or I think 15 professional degree librarians. So, and that's one of those, that's one of those debates. There are many things that folks with experience can do that don't require an MLS degree, but you also, over time, I think you kind of degrade your service by not having that level of professionalism.
But absolutely.
Yeah.
How does the city handle inflation? Do you get a
That's a really big question.
I mean, do you
I mean, definitely.
do you get a relook or?
I mean, definitely the city looks at, I think they do a good job of looking at salaries and looking at market and how the market changes and keeping up with the market value. As far as our other categories, we have to keep asking. We don't get an inflationary adjustment. So that's why I have to ask every year or two for an increase in the amount of money that we pay to our consortium. Because we do most of our databases through the consortium, and those go up every year by at least 4 or 5%. So
But just logically speaking, you'll end up with less.
Yes,
Because it's gonna cost you
absolutely,
more.
because everything costs.
On,
more.
on anything, on anything.
I mean, now we're gonna, I mean, paper, supplies, all those things have gone up by a lot. Like I said, our databases go up 4 or 5% at least every year. Subscriptions go up, which even subscriptions went, it's not like magazine subscriptions, they went down temporarily when, you know, the demand for magazines kind of waned. It still has, but now they've gone back up. So,
Just from a conceptual standpoint, I think you are coming into next year about the same level you finished up this year.
yep,
So in reality, you're taking a hit because you'll end up being able to provide less
it's not too
for the
bad.
same dollar.
Exactly. This year it won't be, next year is when it will really hit, not, I mean, for the 2023 budget, because we were able to do some COVID bargaining with some of our vendors because they were struggling. So some of our database vendors, et cetera, gave us pretty good discounts during COVID and still are in for this next year, but I don't think it'll happen after that. It's, you know, they're gonna bargain themselves out of business. So we were able to get percentages off many of the things. Like the databases are really one of our most expensive things that we purchase. But I don't think that that's gonna continue. So,
Councilman, does the city have projection on inflation yet?
We haven't talked about inflation as a factor, other than in the terms of the salary package, right, and being at market plus 1%.
yeah.
For me, the question is a little different. That's a legitimate question, but I'm just curious. Do you have the number right now of total general fund dollars dedicated to the library in 2022?
2022, it's right around 4 million. So it has gone up, but mostly salary personnel.
So, you know, with the conversation we've had around this table is percentage of general fund. What percentage of general fund
You know,
is the library?
That I need to look up.
The general fund continues to increase. In fact, this conversation leads me to several questions. Like in 2013, what was the total general fund, the city's budget outside of capital improvement? And what percentage of that was the library?
Yeah,
In
I know
2013, what is it in 2022? How many city employees were there in 2013? How many will there be in 2022? Because we're adding 35 positions or 33 positions.
Per capita, how much were they per capita?
Well, that's
exactly-
Because your population is.
That's exactly what our consultant, what Annie is gathering right now, and she's been in touch with Sandra Cifuentes and several other folks in the budget office, getting those, just exactly what you're talking about for the last 10 years. So I don't have all of it, Annie does, but.
Are you gonna talk more about that report?
Which report?
Annie's?
Yep.
Yeah, it's on the agenda. So can I still talk about the budget? But I wanted to talk about your catalog system in reference to the thing that you want to use with the Epson fund.
Oh, that's a sorter. That's a materials handler.
Sorter system. How do you think that affected your budget? The fact that the city believes it's coming from the Epson fund?
How do you think it affected our budget? I don't think.
Yeah.
The Mosher Fund.
The Mosher fund.
I don't really think it did. I mean, what I look at though is that it's been requested at least twice before I got here. And it's a big ticket item. The request went nowhere. Also, I don't know at this point, because I haven't bought one in years, I don't have any idea of what the actual cost is going to be. So we had to issue an RFP, because it's not just the machine, it's whatever modifications you have to make. You have to have an induction window outside and inside, so you're cutting into walls, you're doing things. So we issued an RFP, it's still out there for vendors, because we need to have the folks come in, do their mandatory meeting, walk through, do their CAD drawings, figure out how much the entire project would cost before I can even ask for something. I mean, I don't have any idea in this building how much it would cost. So I couldn't go and say, okay, I think ballparky, this would cost this much, and then I hate to lowball it.
So therefore, you were reluctant to put it in the budget because you didn't have
Well,
a
number
good
one, I
figure.
didn't think it had a snowball's chance of passing, and number two, I have no idea how much to ask for. I don't wanna go in, and there was a request a year or two before I got here, which was way lower than a sorter would actually cost even then.
But I guarantee it's probably more,
Oh, it is.
just because of
It is.
the
It
inflation
is.
thing.
But at that point, that would not have covered what we needed to do in that year's dollars. So maybe the last thing I wanted to do was go in and say, okay, I need $150,000 for the sorter and find out it's $250,000. So that's where it's coming from. And it's been rejected multiple times.
Do you see this as a multi-year project or a single?
No, it doesn't take that long, actually. I mean, there's a little bit of construction, putting in those induction points, but then the sorter itself takes a few days. They're not that, they're big and they're kind of constructed in compartments now, so they're modular. There used to be one giant straight piece of equipment, and it was a little bit more difficult to bring in and set up. And now they're modular and they're very easy to assemble. So I think that the modification of the space will take longer than the machine itself.
So we're gonna discuss the brochure and the Emerson Fund later. It's just, while we're on the budget, I have this little thing that I can't shake, is that the city takes the assumption that the funding for this is gonna come from the Mosher and the Emerson funds, and then cuts your budget. That's the thing that is.
I don't think our budget is cut. I just think it's not, I'm not sure how.
Hasn't grown
No.
sufficiently.
But I'm not,
Hasn't grown with the general fund's growth.
and I guess where my reluctance came from is that some of the things that we asked for that were a very small amount relative to that were questioned pretty heavily. So if I have a $10,000 expense, that's really questioned. What is a $300,000 expense? What's the reality of it? And the reality is we did a sorter 10 years ago, and then we have this fund sitting there.
Well, as a taxpayer, I kind of like the city being
Yeah.
diligent in terms of managing its dollars, but at the same time, they can't be pecuniary. They can't penalize you for being assertive in terms of managing the library's needs. I don't think that's very.
How much does a new fire truck cost?
How much is what? I
How much does a new fire
have
truck
no clue.
cost? I bet it's more than one of these machines.
I bet it is.
Didn't we just buy a whole ton of them?
Have you
Because we
compared
are
any
keeping
cities'
upgraded
safety?
with the
I
population.
mean, safety
Yes.
budgets are.
But I was gonna say, have you ever looked at safety budgets compared to
Well, it's
library
half the
budgets?
budget, it's half the budget, but, that's changing, so.
But this is where I think the board can help the library, where you would be at a disadvantage helping the library, because you have to function within the city hierarchy and you're all part of the team and all that, but we're here to advise on that and whether we think that's fair or not from a civic standpoint.
He's saying we can apply pressure, you can, so,
I
Well,
get it.
different pressure.
yeah, so let us know how we can help this, so.
I guess I'm to
So
the point
we can
with this,
help
like I
too.
said, where we really
You
needed
just
this
wanna
thing
Get it done.
10 years ago. We are very low on staff, and this is gonna free up a lot of staff time that we need to do other things.
So it really is financially
Well,
sound
that's the
to do it.
argument, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a financial.
Well, I've seen it, I've had it in other libraries, and that's what happens.
Right.
So, I mean, we have these giant,
Yeah,
we
there's
call it a
something
pick
like
list. We have this list of hundreds and hundreds of things to pull for people's holds every day, for example. And we never get it done because it's just so many pages. And similar to my last library and the library before, and after we got a sorter, every day it was done before noon because it just freed up so much other time.
Would-
Good checking things in.
Would the people who are doing that be able to do the other things that you need though? Because that seems like a different skill set than some of the other.
Okay, I see your point, because when we were having, budget meetings, I was asked if the money that I had asked for pre-processing, if that freed up some folks who were putting, Mylar covers on books, if they could be my computer lab coordinator, that would be a no.
Yeah. I was
But in this case, we are really slow on pulling those holds, shelving the materials. We have to keep doing all calls for shelving, where everybody from me on down Shelves because we're inundated, yes, that's the same skill set. So it would fall between within the same job description.
But it almost seems like the city doesn't use a capital budgeting, assuming this is capital, a capital budgeting exercise similar to what you see in business, private industry. I mean, it doesn't seem like they take all that they have in front of them, they rank it all, they look at, what's going to return the most for the dollar, and that's how they evaluate which projects to do. Doesn't seem like
That is how it works. There's a fairly sophisticated scoring system. Problem is, a sorter compared to a fire truck
Is not, yeah.
or other public
Yeah.
safety, health and safety stuff, right? Or infrastructure,
Yep.
flood mitigation,
Yep.
water treatment.
Yep.
Those things all score higher. That's how the
Because they're
library
not-
got to where it is. That's
Right.
part of
Right.
the problem.
And that happens in libraries in every community, because obviously you need flood mitigation, you need, safety equipment, et cetera. And this is very nice to have to move libraries forward, but it's not gonna compete with that.
Well, this, for whatever it's worth, this will be I'm gonna weigh in here. I was waiting for my, when I come up on the agenda, but I would just repeat some of this conversation. So I did submit, we were asked months ago, right, for one-time expenditures. I asked you,
Sure.
this was on the list.
Mm-hmm.
So I raised the question last Tuesday night. We got a, just so you know, we got a capital budget 3 weeks ago at 4:43 in the afternoon with a meeting that started at 5. $78 million of expense. We had 17 minutes to look at it before we got into a meeting. So, it's like, what do you do with that? So there were things for me that were priorities to look for.
Sure.
This was one of them, and it's not there. So, and it just happened to be when we were asked for one-time expenditures in May that were our priorities. This was on the list. So it's like, well, why would we be asked if this doesn't show up on the list? I don't care what the scoring system is. So I did send an email to Harold and Dale and the crew, Jim and Golden, and the top of my list. Well, I've got things on the list, but the other budget considerations was the automated handler. And I've got some narrative here. I estimated the cost of $250,000, but that's what you had given to me back in May.
But that was off the top of my head, I have no idea, like I said.
Well, that's all I had,
Yeah.
was that number. What I have said in this, just so you know, and I've acknowledged that there was an agreement to take out of the motion fund. I said for several reasons, I think using the motion fund for this purchase is not a great idea. When asked for our one-time funding priorities in May, I assumed we were being asked about priorities to be funded with general fund or similar resources, not the motion fund. What I am going to say, unless I'll back off if you want me to back off. Maybe I'll say to you, I'll back to the board. I'll back off if you want me to. But my message will be, if you want a proposal around which it'll be easy to rally the community to create a library district, stay this course on the budgeting process. Underfund the resources. Buy this out of the motion fund. And if that's what you want, it's an easy case to make that the city will never fund the library at the level it's supposed to, even when we have the money to do it, and when we've been asked for our one-time priorities. I added, by the way, the shelving and the dividers and the other things that you gave me. Those are on my list. And honestly, my position is going to be, don't ask me what my one-time priorities are and then ignore me. Right. You do that at your peril, honestly. That's the message to the crew. I'm not happy about it, obviously. It's an offense to me to be asked and then to be ignored. And then to fund it this way. And I realize we're on camera and the whole world will get a chance to watch this thing here.
We are gonna put this on TV.
I know.
Good.
I'll stand down if you don't want that kind of conversation to unfold tomorrow night. But I'm prepared tomorrow night to make the point that what we're doing with this budget, to the degree that anybody would want to make the case, that if that recommendation comes from the consultant, that ought to be the one that you carry that this group carries to the council. this budgeting cycle is gonna help make that case.
So he's asking us,
Well, I'll just jump in. From my perspective, I always viewed the Mosher Fund as a rainy day fund. That when the city was absent adequate resources to fund the library, that would be a place that you could go to keep things going, buy things when they couldn't afford to buy. That's not the situation I'm hearing this year. I'm hearing that there's more money than was expected, that the city was looking for opportunities, and this one just happened to be ignored.
No, I mean,
Or fell through the cracks, or, I don't want to be negative, but, it didn't bubble up.
but you need to realize that we had to submit our budget documents before we knew that this pot of money was there.
But even so, you probably under asked, right? Not even knowing the money was there, and even so, we're
Well, I'm
not.
not talking about what
The
you
other-
were
the
asked, I'm
other
talking about
guys-
what I was asked.
The other guys get a relook, why wouldn't you get a relook? I mean,
well, let's,
There's gonna be a relook tomorrow night.
yeah, so
I
let's, do
guarantee.
you think he should do that?
I'm comfortable with that. Are you comfortable with that?
It doesn't matter. I want to hear
So
what you
let's
say.
hear what we think.
I
So,
want to hear what you say.
Yes, I think. I mean, this has been, since I've been on this board, which has been a few years, this is a continual conversation.
Yeah, the time is now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
is that a yes?
yeah, it seems like it's been an issue since before you even got here.
Sounds like a unanimous, yeah, go for it. Yeah.
I've tried to be sensitive to Nancy, I don't wanna put.
I'm in the middle.
She
So.
has specifically said she's not taking a position, we're the ones taking this position, so. And we are taking that position.
And we are an advisory board.
You are
and we
certainly
think-
looking
We
at
think that that's,
Advising.
we think that that's the
If we
best
know-
advice we can give the city
Yeah.
based on what we have seen happen in terms of funding for the library over a long period of time.
Well, what I'd said earlier in the conversation is that it was my understanding, and it may be my misunderstanding, that whatever understanding that Nancy had with the budgeting process and her colleagues, that this board did not assume that this was going to be funded out of the motion fund.
That's correct.
That's correct.
That's correct.
In my mind, you talk about rainy day. I don't even about rainy day. It seems to me that you ought to use the motion fund to pursue things that are real visionary.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
that are kind of way beyond, it's like, what would be really special, right?
Just
Not what's essential,
Right.
to have a functioning library.
But I agree with you on one hand, but on the other hand, I'm a realist and I've worked
I
in
get
libraries
that.
for a long time. We don't even have a program budget.
I spent
Yeah.
For a program
a
budget.
lot of decades on your side of this
Yeah,
conversation.
you did.
I'm not on
Yeah.
that side of the
Yeah.
conversation today.
Yeah,
So I get
get
to pursue it a little differently.
yeah.
But I don't want to put you in I don't want to misrepresent this group. That was part of my concern when I said to Harold, what? The sorter out of the motion fund, and then he said, well, we all agreed to it. I'm like, I know how those
I
agreements
don't think
go.
anybody agreed to, no.
That was never,
No.
no.
I didn't think you all had agreed to it. All right.
So, you had mentioned that it might be advantageous if some of us come tomorrow night. You're still of that belief?
Absolutely.
And how long do you think this debate is gonna go on tomorrow?
It's most of the meeting is budget,
Yeah, it's all budget.
so it's
No, I
not,
mean-
there aren't other topics.
I don't know that I don't think there.
I mean, do they do
There's-
library first, they do
Oh, I
library?
have,
No.
I have no
No.
idea. With this, I'd have to go back. There is a sequence. I'd have to go back and look at our materials to tell you where in the conversation.
Well, it doesn't matter to me because
Here's what I-
I have no social life and I can spend it.
Here's
But we have family.
Well, you do now.
Family.
Can you attend virtually still?
no.
No.
Here's how I think it's going to unfold, Mark. When we got the capital improvement budget, and there was really there was no chance to really ask questions that night. That was my recollection. We were told the next meeting we would have a chance to raise questions. Well, the next meeting there wasn't the opportunity, and I made the point. We got this thing with no time to review it. We were told then we get to ask questions tonight. Now we don't get. What I said was, if we get to the point where somebody says to me it's too late, I said, I'm gonna be really, really grumpy. I'm just not gonna accept that as a response. We get far enough into this budget process, because that's what happens. Well, gee, we should have fixed this back then, but we never, there was, so I'm on record as saying, that is not gonna work. That's just not gonna wash this time around. So we were told then last week that tomorrow night we can ask questions. And we were told, if you, to give us your questions in writing. I don't know who else did that, I did. They've got a number of them for me. And I expect us to get I want my questions answered before we get into any other budget presentations. Otherwise, the same damn thing's gonna happen. It's gonna get too late.
Right.
People are gonna be exhausted, or let's pick this up another time. I mean, that's just the way it goes. So I know what I wanna know tomorrow night, and I want answers to my questions before I have another budget discussion.
So if we show up, how does that work?
Well, I would suggest that during public invite to be heard, you use your 3 minutes to say, either all of you or some of you, or certainly you as the board chair, to say, we understand that tonight begins discussions or presentations and discussions about those parts of the budget that would include the library, whether it comes up tonight or not is not the board, because my questions will come up. And we want you to know that we are, we all know that our library has been under-resourced based on the work of a consultant hired by the city to conduct a feasibility study. We know as a percentage, if it was $1 million a year just to get to average and we're at 4 million, we're under-resourced by 25%, as a general, right? As a general number, or 20% at least.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be keen to observe and to learn as an advisory board how much of that 20% deficit we will make up in this budgeting cycle and beyond. Because I don't think we're making up any of it. I think we're getting farther behind.
Is this where we start talking about library district at city council?
No.
Well, I will make
It
this.
sounds like that.
Only because
Like
we
that
have,
is.
we'll get to that with feasibility study part 2. I mean, that is part of what the consultant has been hired to do, is to say a district is an option, a hybrid is an option, to study how these options could best fund the library.
And it's gonna happen when? That's gonna be finished
In the
work?
next few months, I mean.
So that doesn't work for us. So here's why, because Boulder is about to put this, they are going,
Yeah, they are.
they're going whole hog.
Yeah.
And they are right up, they are wrapping around Longmont, if you look at the map. They're taking every.
And they've been
single-
planning this for 5 years.
So if we don't move now, we are going to lose a huge potential revenue stream for the city's library to Boulder. Their number is 4 times, 5 times, actually, what your number
They
is.
want 20 million.
20 million, and that's what their district's gonna create, and they're gonna suck a whole bunch of that along on. So we need to act now. We can't wait 2 or 3 months for this report. We have to start talking about it. We have to start now, because we have to be on the ballot next year. So,
Wouldn't that give the city less incentive to give us money in this budget cycle if they're like, well, they're just gonna become a library, we're trying to become a library district anyway?
well, that would be okay. A year of pain is okay if we double our
Use
budget
that to our
next
advantage,
year.
yeah.
So, and get
Yeah.
a new building and all the things that go with the library.
But isn't it? I mean, we want to do what is best, and in my opinion, waiting for the feasibility study. Of course, that seems like a very logical answer.
Can I say one thing about the feasibility study?
Mhm.
That thing was supposed to be done before the pandemic.
It was, but it's not.
Yeah.
And so, therefore, if we, if this went on the ballot and it was voted down, that's it.
Oh, no, you can do it again. That's what next slide was. It got voted down first time.
Yeah.
Well, the point that I'll make tomorrow night, unless you'd rather me not, is not to short circuit the feasibility study. Would be to make the point that if the expectation is, or if there's an expectation that we won't proceed, or there isn't an appetite for proceeding on the city staff, this budgeting cycle is a big, or this decision is a big mistake. If you don't want to see that kind of a proposal come forward, then what people who care about the library are going to want to see that we are making up the deficit. And this is not how you make up the deficit. This sends the exact opposite message.
It sends a clear message that we move forward fast on this other stuff.
Well,
I'm just saying that they need to hear that. I've said it, they need to hear it tomorrow night publicly.
I don't mind talking about the library district, but my concern is that it'll get in the way of this budget. The people will start fixating on that, and you won't get the money. So maybe it's a timing issue,
That's
maybe,
what I.
The folks that are already upset and talking about a library district before it's even been breathed will say something.
now if we want to do something a couple weeks later, fine, but my
All right,
personal.
fair enough, that makes sense.
Don't want to have it get, start muddying the water of the budget.
But to his point, I think it's not gonna come up. I think it will,
Right.
you'll kind of
He's-
get there
he's gotta-
circuitously.
He's
Right.
planting the seed, right?
Right, like,
One
If,
decision is gonna influence the other.
whoever in the community thinks, however the people in the community think about this, they think about it. And some, are going to be automatically opposed to library district. What I think it's important for decision makers in the city to understand, this is not a decision made in isolation. There's a keen interest on the part of people who care about the library to see deficits made up, or it's a clear message that there's only one way to do that. It won't be through the traditional budgeting process. There's not the will or the appetite to do that. The only alternative then is
Dedicated funding.
is to create a district. But I'd like to do the best job I could to make the case in this budgeting cycle to do more, right? The specter of the potential library district, which should be a reason to pay attention. But part of the case for me is just simply, you ask me for my recommendations and then you ignore them. That sets up a different kind of communication with the city staff that I just assume we not get into. I would rather not happen that way, but they need to hear that message as well.
And I've also seen this work another way. One of the cities where I worked, looking at a district, the city did kick in this much more money. And then everyone said, when we started doing the rest of the, getting people together and enthusiastic about dedicated funding, said, well, you just got a bunch of money. And what we got was like $100,000 or $200,000 when we needed $2 million.
Right.
So that is a little bit of a concern for me too,
Yeah.
is them kicking in and saying, look, we gave you $300,000
Right.
and now you're done when we're short by
Right, you're
money.
just grateful.
So
Well, yeah.
that's exactly it. That was exactly it.
The vision is a library for the 21st century, probably the 22nd century.
Most times this happens, yeah.
But that doesn't really get it done.
No, of course not.
That doesn't put you on the road to create.
I know that, and you know that, but when
I'm
you ask the
just-
public,
I'm
they
just-
say, oh, you just got a bunch of money last year, what more do you want?
So-
I'm just saying that happens.
Well, you can kill anything with an incremental improvement. We used to do it all the time in corporations, right? You
Yeah.
want to kill a project, let's give a little
Exactly.
bit more.
Let's give them a
Yeah.
tiny bit, and then
Yeah.
people say, look what you got.
So, yeah, that's not what we need here.
No,
We
we don't.
need to double our budget
Yeah.
to give this city.
But my
a
point is,
library
that's not
service.
happening, that's not gonna happen this year. It's
So,
not gonna,
not
we're not
from
gonna
the
say,
city.
yeah.
But it could with the district
It
next
could.
year, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't wanna use this as like a bludgeon or anything with your budget. I just wanna do what's right for the library and for the city and this library services that it deserves. Because we're not the city we were in 2013.
No,
We're not
absolutely
remotely
not.
close to that city, because that's when I moved back
And
here.
libraries certainly aren't either.
Yeah.
No,
So,
everything has changed.
I mean, so it's, I think his approach is the right approach. I think that we need to do that, but I also think that we need to, a couple weeks from now, and we'll get to this, but we are moving forward with stuff. Friends of the library and I met, and we'll talk about that a little bit.
Okay, great.
well, I think it's good, do think it's good that this particular money is tied to one thing
Yes.
that you've asked for 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And so it's not like we're giving you $300,000 to do with what you want. It's for
Yeah.
one item that you've asked for
For years.
over time. It's
Years and
an
years.
easier argument to say than, our budget, we need more money, period.
Right,
You know.
they still said no to 3 new positions.
Yes.
Right, so.
And two of them are part-time, non-benefited, they're like this much.
Right,
So
Just-
it would,
yeah.
I mean, the amount
Not
of
like
paper
you're-
sorter would fund those positions for 6-8 years. So,
Well, that's to those numbers, the staffing numbers are gonna be really, not for tomorrow night, but, before we finish this budgeting cycle, to know, the percentage of library employees, what percentage you represented in 2013, what percentage you represent in 2022, compared to the overall,
yeah,
number of employees, right?
Yep.
And what you represent in
Yep.
2022. My guess is it's gonna be much smaller. That, I mean,
well, and it's not even, it is, but it's not even the size, it's the diversity. It's the, that one of the positions we asked for is a bilingual outreach coordinator. That wasn't a thing in 2013.
Right,
We need a computer lab coordinator because our needs have only grown in that area for something more sophisticated than just dropping.
but if
through
you
a
can't get the
chair.
numbers, you'll never get that diversity.
No,
I mean,
no, you won't.
so one way to make the case is to say, if we had just kept up
Yeah,
the number of people employed and assigned to the library
yes.
for
Would have been X.
2013,
Yep.
you would have, if this being more
This many
FTE,
people.
diversify it in ways that make sense in
Yeah.
2022.
Well, I will commit to come tomorrow night, for whatever it's worth. And maybe I can touch base with you on some numbers before I go, so I don't.
do you want help drafting a statement, or are you feeling extemporaneous, moved by the spirit kind of thing?
He's a
That's what I
passionate
do.
guy who talks a lot, so.
I'll take whatever help I can get, but I think I need to make sure that the numbers are
I have numbers for you.
okay. And if you guys have time and want to come along, I mean,
I have a Wednesday meeting as well, so I've got to skip tomorrow.
Yeah, I can't, but I'm glad that you will be there and you have.
all right, well,
I am likely to be there. I have another meeting, but this is.
If my kids were vaccinated and I could bring them, this was January.
The message is you're on your own, boss.
If I could zoom in, I would.
I've been on my own before. Okay, well, all right. So, anything more on the budget before we move on? Okay, how about the Friends of the Library report?
We don't have
That meeting is on
They're meeting
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
That's your meeting.
Because now we're meeting before they are.
Okay, so we'll skip that one.
We were going to
I've
have a
already heard
sign-up
enough of
sheet
you.
though. We
Oh,
were going to
yes,
have a
we
sign-up
were
sheet.
gonna have a sign sheet and we do not. But we will next, we're
Yeah.
covered through the end of this.
We'll cover through the end of this year.
Yeah, of this year,
We're
yeah.
fine.
Yeah, for those that are attending, as long as you know, that's fine, but
Yeah.
we'll work on something for
Yes, that Wednesday meeting.
next year. Okay, then I think we've covered everything up to whole business. And everybody's dying to hear what's going on with the feasibility study.
We have a meeting on Friday with Annie. She's been crunching lots of numbers. I've been helping her assemble tons
Last
of
Friday.
data. The meeting will be this Friday.
This Friday.
So I don't have a ton of info for you. She has finalized questions for stakeholder interviews. We've given her a whole list of stakeholders, so she'll be doing a lot of 20 to 30 minute calls or online meetings with stakeholders just to update. I think that the initial consultants missed a few folks, and also some things have happened since then. Some of the questions talk about some of the same things that the first consultant did: the role of the community of the library, strengths and challenges of the library, the facilities definitely, changes in the next 10 to 20 years. So that's the next step with her. She's, like I said, she's been compiling data. The stakeholder interviews come next, and then it's going to be the larger group that meets, which includes some of you folks on the board and friends and other.
So is that a September stakeholder interview?
She will start interviewing as soon as we have our meeting Friday. She will be interviewing folks next week.
So we could be asked to interview that week, okay.
I have both of you on her list.
Good.
You may want to give her a heads up that as we crank up this issue about the budget, pressure may come back on her. People are asking, well, where are we at with the feasibility study? So, I mean, it may come all the way around.
There's no
Right.
may about that, there
It
will
will.
be pressure on
Right.
it, so, I mean, we
It
have.
also took months
We
for
gotta
them
move
to get her a
it.
contract, so.
I know
Yeah.
we're,
Yeah.
as you know, our job.
You're not.
We balance that out, it's between us.
She expected it to start months earlier, but she did not have a contract. She did not have,
Yeah.
yes, so. Anyway, that's where we are. So, on the more after Friday.
Well, maybe, you can send out an interim update.
I can send an update, you can't,
Just
I
let
mean,
us know
remember,
where
don't
things
reply
are.
all, but you can send
Right.
comments to me,
Right, Just
so.
give us a heads up
Yep.
on where you think you're at. Any questions on the feasibility study?
I have a lot of
Are
questions.
you
but I
haunted
just-
by
It's like rock hard place, Nancy, I'm the middle, so.
Right.
So,
Okay, Mosher Empson Fund policy, Katie?
I put it together, I got one comment,
Hopefully that was
that was
mine.
you, to just change it from quarterly to semi-annually. So you had asked for more frequent, I
Oh.
changed it to quarterly, Mark said too frequent, came back with semi-annually.
well, I think if you're doing the whole update on it, semi-annually is fine, but I don't think that precludes the library from making a request at a different time. This is just the semi-annual review.
Yeah, my take on it was I thought it should be more of the savings account than a checking account. That They should be bigger items, that, to the councilman's point, they should be visionary and it should be special.
Not something that's required to operate a library.
Yeah, it wouldn't,
Shouldn't interfere with the friend, shouldn't interfere with the city. But
What have you done with the policy that talks about its purpose?
So it's, I didn't really put a whole bunch of purpose. Oh, I said the review will be the library's strategic plan and then the request list in relation to that strategic plan.
Which expired 2 years before I got here.
nothing's forever, so.
Yeah. There was no strategic plan.
So the reason I asked the
But
question.
there wasn't any, I did not put any, I didn't want to put a stipulation on the library per se, because I don't know what they want. But I guess we could put more.
Well, let's hear
Well,
that.
it would seem to me that you'd want in that policy statement, or in the policy, a statement about what the intended uses or purpose of the Mosher Fund in the Empson Fund would be.
Unfortunately, in the funds themselves, the descriptions say designated for library purposes.
And so let's, and then you want to be clear what those purposes would be, it seems to me. Because if we had that policy, and there was a real clear statement that this is not just to supplement what's
Oh, it does
necessary.
say, I did write conditionally, fund requests should represent items that the library would not be able to get via Friends of the Library support nor its annual budget. Should I be more strident in that?
Do you want to
We're in the right
do
direction.
you think things like,
That's a pretty good statement.
that's a generic statement that fits what we want. So
So-
then we get to decide, right?
right,
So in your comments,
Or
John,
nominate.
it wouldn't be a bad idea to say, we have been working on a policy statement, specifically to guide how we think and what we do with the Mosher Fund. This is what we believe should be the purpose of the Mosher Fund, which is
well,
what you're
I
doing with it
really
is
wasn't gonna
inconsistent.
hit the Mosher Fund tomorrow, I was just gonna
They put it in there.
make
Well, the
it.
Mosher Fund
there.
it's identified as the funding source for this sort of.
Okay.
I did tell them that, I told them that we didn't have the specifications for how we would spend the fund. And that, the only thing that I knew at that point was that here is the fund, here's how much is in here. And if the library wanted to appropriate funds, we had to make a library request of the board, and then the board had to request.
I might make the comment tomorrow night or some other night. This had fallen off the books. It didn't even
Yeah.
show in the.
Well, that's what I meant.
Right.
In the
They didn't
city's
find it till I got
financials,
here.
right?
Yeah.
Until we raised the question, what about that fund?
Mhm.
Which fund would that be? So,
What's in it?
and then, I have to say, this is I'm gonna tell Harold, to do this without consulting with this group, whatever conversation he had with you is one thing, but to
It has
not,
gone around in circles. I don't wanna end up in, I mean, I like my job, thank you.
this is about,
It's
this is about,
are you gonna request this? You know, these little requests aren't going through. We didn't know anything about having more money available when we turned in our budget, which means at that point, to request a $300,000 item when $10,000 items have been questioned is not something I thought would ever.
sure.
So
My
at
message,
that- so at
this is
that
not to
point-
you, my
so-
message to the city
Yes.
manager.
So at that point, though, I mean, Harold talked to me about it. He said you had this motion fund, have you considered it? And I said, yes, I would consider it. But we have not the library has not made a request of the board at this point. Right now, we have an RFP out to see how much this project costs. We don't know. So that's where we're at.
My message to Harold is, it's really bad politics on the part of the city manager to assume that the city can spend the motion fund without any consultation with the group that you've convened and asked for advice.
And no matter what I've said, they're gonna turn around and say, I asked them to take out of the motion.
Didn't ask me,
Yeah.
should have asked me as a liaison. Because I offered, this is not about you. Because there'd be more, there'd be different.
It was not well received that I gave you a wish list for that.
I'm gonna stuff that wish list down somebody's throat.
Did you ask her for a wish list?
Yes, and I gave it to her.
And did you tell them that?
Yes.
And it was not well received?
I told them that. She didn't offer that up. I pushed her for it. And I told them that.
And it was not well received from your bosses? I would ask you to name names except we're on camera.
Nancy.
I want to let you know that the double doors on the inside are closed. Use the left-hand side that we're looking at.
Okay.
That's the one that opens, the other one doesn't open.
Okay,
This, okay.
One question, this is getting away from the larger discussion, we're saying those reviews shall include, should we say it may include?
I'm sorry, Mary.
When we're talking about what the review of the board will include, in the third paragraph, we say this board shall include strategic, total amount, strategic plan and all that, should we change that to may?
May include, yeah.
It's probably better wording.
Just give us a little more room.
You could take what Katie read and seamlessly connect that with what's visionary or, more outside, necessary operations, right, to cover those kinds of aspirational. The language she had is fine, but to connect it with what you just did.
Well, I think we're close, but what I'd like to do is recommend sending it out again, Katie, based on this conversation for a second reading.
Yeah.
And then put it up for a vote.
I mean, everybody
It's a live
has
document.
it.
It's good.
And I.
It's a live document, like we're editing right now, so you can get in there.
I can send it back around too.
Send a link out
Well, I
one more
just-
time. Yeah.
Just, we've heard some different thoughts. Maybe we want to interject them, maybe not. Let's take another shot at it. And then, I mean, this isn't something that's burning to get done, but it's something that we felt was prudent and should be done. So I think now, based on everything I'm hearing, it has greater emphasis than when we first started out. So send it around for second reading. If we have anything, we'll throw it in there and we can put it up for a vote next meeting. Does that sound reasonable?
Thanks, Katie, for doing that.
I just want to sort her.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, this has
She
been
knows that
something.
this is gonna cause her.
This has been something that we've needed for a long time. We have a huge circulation and a small staff. This is the exact kind of equipment we need. And the last thing I want is to say, forget it, we're not even gonna entertain looking at the Mosher Fund. We're gonna ask for the budget, it's gonna get refused, and then Lord knows how long it's gonna be.
Then the board will react to that.
Yeah.
And then we have to go through, this RFP process is not a short one. We gotta go through the thing multiple times.
Well, you don't even know what to ask for from what I'm hearing.
You have to use an RFP so that you get your customer proposals, so people come in and tell you how much the thing costs, they give you a proposal. Normally, if you were doing this, you would then bring the proposal back to the board and say, this is how much it costs. Would you entertain going to city council and asking for this much to be taken from the Mosher Fund in order to purchase this? If they said yes, and you go to council meeting, then you buy a sorter.
Well, I could see putting a plug number in the budget, since you don't know a total number, like 250,000 or whatever.
How do I know what that is?
Well,
What if it's 100,000
well, hear
short?
hear me out. So I could see putting a plug number in the budget. And then if it's 320,000 or whatever,
Then you
the
take the
board,
rest.
the board then would pick up
The rest.
above the plug number, but it, you know, we would obviously like the plug number to be close.
Generous.
And I have seen this council go back and add funding to things multiple times, so it's not unheard of.
Maybe they could take a whistle on the fire truck.
Can I say one thing back just to the language around like visionary projects? I love that idea, but I also, if we don't become a library district, I don't want to tie Nancy's hands.
That's my point.
And
I have to
eventually
function
have her
still.
not be able to get what she needs because it's not visionary to have a sorter.
That's why I like the wording you got there, which is fairly generic,
Right.
so it's good.
But I do think in spirit, we should try to move in that direction, you know?
My only point was, to be clear, the expectation is the motion fund, the IMSS fund are not used for what would be
Day-to-day
operational.
operation.
And it's not to supplant the kind of funding that you should expect for operations.
And I
It
would,
should
add,
supplement
yeah, but I would add in, I mean, I have felt the same way since I got here about the Friends, about how libraries have program budgets, and, you know, they are, and the Friends have bought us our computer management system to manage our computers, they have funded all of our programs, they have bought software, all kinds of things that have supplanted what should have been in the library budget. So this is not a new thing.
Yeah, I get it.
But if we had not asked the Friends for some of those
It's
things,
one of
we
the
would
reasons
still
we're doing a
be,
feasibility study.
yes,
Right, right.
part two.
I guess the other thing I'm just saying though is that do we want to lock ourselves into particular understandings of this fund before we know what's going to happen with the feasibility study and where your eventual funding streams are going to come from? Like we're saying, let's wrap this piece up, but is that wise to do before we know what the long-term process is going to be for funding the library?
Well, I mean, as long as we keep it reasonably generic, we're not wrapping it up to
Okay.
lock it down.
Yeah.
You know, he's not wrong, but at the same time, this is a fund we recently found.
Yeah,
right?
it's just found
Yeah.
money.
It's like money that was kind of buried somewhere.
It was buried.
And nobody is controlling that money right now. Nobody's saying what should be done with it. And the only way that's going to
Library
happen,
purposes, that's it.
then this is the library purposes group. So we should step up and we should say, we're going to help figure out how this money gets spent. And if she says, I really need this sorter now, and there is no other way to get it in the short term, I don't see a problem with it. But this is something the city should pay for. This is not something we should take out of a special fund.
Well, I agree with that. My intent of the policy was to create some responsibility around the management of the money.
Yes.
Yeah. I
The
think
money
that's
was
fine.
just sitting there.
Yeah.
I
Let's
mean,
take
it
control.
I
had
get that.
it
Well,
had
then you
a
wanted
likelihood
to-
of
yeah.
being squandered. There was no responsibility set up for the board. I think it was incumbent upon us to try and put some framework around that so that whether this board or some future board at least has some guidelines as to how to manage the money.
You Mark,
I know.
And that's all I was looking for.
Well,
The
when it
absence-
goes into our bylaws, then it is more, we can change it, but now it's in our bylaws, so it's even, you know, so.
the absence of this is what got us into tonight's discussion. Like, had that policy, had your policy been adopted and people were aware of it, there might have been less an inclination to assume that we would use the motion fund to fund something that's, you know, essential for this library.
I agree
If
with
that
that.
policy were already adopted, and it can change. If you get a library district, that's what you do. Your policies are
Right, that's-
cast in carved in stone.
But all the concerns that we're trying to address in this policy kind of bubbled up through this budget. Because, you know, the interest in trying to use it as a piggy bank to supplement the general fund was not the intent as the board saw it.
Actually, it supplants the general fund.
Okay, so we okay on that one? Just send it around again.
We'll
and
send it
we'll-
around.
Moving on, nothing on little free libraries because
We
there's no
have two
friends.
possibilities, but, well, I'll be running the test for that Wednesday.
Okay, and they are,
One of them is actually, they're very different. One is a little free library at the Hope Shelter, the overnight shelter. They seem quite interested, and the other one is an opposite type thing. It's at a, I just forgot the name of it. It's a brand new coffee shop in town that's looking for a bookshelf, for patrons, so.
The one on Main at
Yep.
like 7th?
They seem like they're real interested in doing some community outreach, and they would put a shelf in front of the library, et cetera, so.
So you,
Those
so
are a few
your,
possibilities so far.
your read is they're inclined to get more involved with Little Free Libraries at this point? Okay, great. I'm gonna move on then. Boulder Library District update.
I didn't see much new. I'm reading everything that's out there. But
So Prudence from Friends of the Library and I met. We are gonna have a meeting on the 27th of this month, which will be the first beginnings of a citizen committee to look into this. She's gonna bring a couple people, I'm gonna bring a couple people, and we are probably gonna, Boulder's work, so we're probably gonna copy some of what Boulder did in terms of reaching out to the community, saying, you guys, anybody interested in joining this committee, things like that. So my question to you guys is, anybody here interested in being involved in that?
and you've looked out through the Boulder Committee has a good website.
Oh yeah,
Other activities and stuff,
I've
through all
dived
that.
deep into it. Prudence a riot, by the way. You were
I
right.
love
She's
her.
awesome.
Okay.
She is awesome. So
Yep.
yeah, we're gonna have a lot. This is gonna be not only an important project, it's gonna be a fun project.
Mm-hmm.
So
Did you set up a time or anything?
I believe we did.
I'm interested, but I'm guessing I'm not available at how much we'll be able to meet,
Well, why don't
unless it's Zoom.
it might very well be.
Sometimes if it's a
Rate-
planning period or something.
The rate we're going right now, we're headed back towards Zoom, a lot of things, I think. Can I get with you to maybe coordinate with some of these guys? So
Sure can.
So basically, I will get to her the exact time and place, and then she'll send it out to you guys, and anybody here who's interested should welcome to join. So I do want to limit it to a certain number of people. I don't know how many yet, but it can't be 50 people. It's got to be somewhere between 10 and 15 probably in there.
If
So.
you need, get in touch with me. If you want to meet in person and you need the conference room, let me know.
Okay.
And otherwise, we can
And
set
we have
something
the
up.
LPM space
Yeah,
as well,
that's
so
true.
we have lots of places.
Which may be better because you can probably do more drink there than necessarily in a
So I was told
study
that,
conference room.
that Biff Warren is the unofficial mayor of Longmont. And
Who?
Biff Warren. He would be the guy that we should contact.
Biff, B-I-F.
I know, I thought he was dead because there's a baseball complex named after him already. But apparently he is the puppeteer. So anyway, my friend knows him and has his contact info. I don't know how we would approach him necessarily, but if we want a NIWAT,
Oh yeah, there's a Biff Warren athletic complex.
that's what I'm talking about. We spend a lot of
You
time
bet
there,
it's
my
okay.
And
family.
he's not
So do
even
you see
dead.
this as
He's not, I know. You gotta be big time if you already have memorial complexes and you're alive.
It says Bruce W. Biff Warren, NIWAT, he's an attorney.
Well, I'd like
Family
to
attorney.
participate.
Yeah.
If you'd like me to participate.
You were involved in the first round.
Yeah, I didn't get a complex, and you
But I get
Right?
a conflict
I think
in
money.
the early
Because
afternoon.
I'm guessing.
Small town. Because small town, big fish.
Either the morning or the
Interesting.
evening would
Money
work
is money.
personally for me.
All right. My guess is it'll be in the evening, so, but we'll see.
Well, that would be great.
The name isn't a thing.
I think we picked, it's a Thursday? Is that it?
I got the 27th as a Monday.
It's a Monday? Okay. So,
I mean, it would be our normal meeting.
It's
but
this
before
coming
that.
Monday, yeah.
but this is like next week.
Yeah,
Right.
next Monday.
So I will get all of the info to her. Look here, what I've got. I think we talked about it, but let's see what we set up.
Well, you set it up how you need to set it up, but for me, I would prefer either the morning or the evening.
Would you
We
like,
have not set a time up yet, so.
would you all like me to send, I can send you the list that Annie has of stakeholders that she's going to interview. You can
Perfect.
reply directly to me, remember, don't reply all, et
Yes.
cetera, but if there are some holes that you see that you would like her to interview as well, or we may get some ideas off the list too.
Yes, that's what I'm.
Okay, I'll send that
That'd
out.
be great.
So is this really a combination of the library district update and your board activities upon conclusion of the feasibility study?
Depends on the feasibility study.
The feasibility, I can tell you that, you know, from what I can see.
Well, I don't think there'll be anything
The feasibility
definitive
study
coming
is
out
going
of
to
it.
say that the library needs an independent source of funding, because the library is going to be low on all of those level of service parameters that we talked about before, on space per capita, on collection per capita, on programming, on technology, on FTE, on all those things. And so
It's gonna be at least a hybrid at a minimum, is gonna be the
I
recommendation.
would be shocked if that were not the case, because I just don't think that, I mean, I think y'all think I can ask for a $300,000 piece of equipment, which I'm skeptical about, but I don't think I can say, can you throw in another couple $1 million on top of that? So I don't think that it will counteract you moving in any direction.
I just believe that right now, the fact that Boulder is doing this now, for real, for sure, is going to negate much of the negative that we've seen.
Especially when
From
folks know that they're including NIWAT and some other.
They're including everything right up to our board, right up to the city board,
Yeah.
all along it.
I
all
don't think
around
people will be as shocked about like Gun Barrel, but I think NIWAT, things that are in the St. Mary Valley School District, I think that will be impactful.
Yes.
Because usually library districts go along school district borders more often than not.
Yeah.
So,
We might even get the school district to be on our side on this one, so who knows, possible. So that's, I think now's the time to, I don't think we should wait wait for the study to be done. If the city wants that, I'm just.
I don't know how fast it'll be done, so I think you should do what you need to do.
Yeah, we need to get it started, and we need to get it on the ballot next year if Boulder's doing it. And we need to make it clear that this needs to be fair. It needs, if NIWAT is using Longmont, and, you know,
They're using both about equally when we looked at it
yeah,
before.
then maybe we should be looking at something that's more split.
And realize that NIWA wants a branch,
Right.
what I heard. Because they're not gonna, they haven't been paying for library service, they're getting it free. So they're not gonna say, oh, allow me to pay money and not want something in return.
Oh, yeah. And
But
let's just get one.
on the other hand, that side of Longmont leading toward Niwot would be a great spot for a branch because
Anyway.
they're pretty far away, so.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I totally agree. So that's kind of the thinking here is that let's just keep moving. I
I'm
don't,
certainly not gonna stop.
there is a reason I asked to be on the library board. This is one of those reasons to see if we can make this happen.
Wow, that surprises me.
Gee, what a shock.
Are there local close by hybrid districts?
The closest thing to a hybrid that I know of anywhere nearby would be Cooter River
Yeah, it's Fort
in
Collins.
Fort Collins, but I think they're less hybridy than they started out. And I
Yeah,
should
they're
talk to
moving
them.
the other way.
Because when they first separated from the city and became a district, they contracted back for a lot of stuff. For HR, for facilities maintenance, for a lot of stuff. I don't think they contract back for nearly as many things as they did. I think they've had a good relationship with the city of Fort Collins. I think it's been relatively smooth, but I don't think they're as dependent on that relationship as they were.
Right.
That's just what I've heard though, and I can talk to David Slifkin, who's the director there, and see.
It would be, we will definitely do that once this gets going, to see what it
He's
looks like.
just about to retire, so it would be good to get him quick like.
Well, he might be more available then, too. So, what's his name?
David, and I can give you his contact stuff,
Would you?
Slivken, Slivken, but I can get that to you.
Okay.
But he would really be a good one to talk to you about that.
We've also been talking to, so I've been doing these city council interviews with all of the city council people, and one of the people I've been working with is a fellow named Richard Lyons from Lyons Gaddis law firm. Turns out he's an expert in library districts. He did the Lyons Library District. He
No way. Huh.
did Erie's. He's done a bunch of stuff.
Huh.
He's retired, and I did try to suck him into this, but didn't succeed this time. I think I have to get his wife involved somehow.
But
So
you still know Kim.
I do know Kim, but
Suter.
at the same time, he has other people in his firm that. So we have a
That would
local.
do it.
We have a local
Local would be
firm
better.
in
yeah.
Longmont that knows a lot about library districts and districts and
That's
metro districts.
a good thing.
So,
That's a really good thing.
so just so you know, we're already starting out those conversations.
Okay, so to recap this, Friends of the Library meeting maybe next Monday.
It will be next Monday. I just have to get a time.
Time to.
We're gonna talk about-
Talking about formation of a citizen committee.
And a formation of a library foundation. that will work alongside Friends of the Library. She's interested in talking about that, as am I, so. Let's see if the big thing.
And don't discount talking to Eric Pazumba through that, because
Why won't?
because my last foundation in Bellingham was run through the city's foundation, and we got about $6 million in bequests in the short time I was there.
So we have two choices here, the Boulder County one
You
and the Longmont one, and
Yes.
they're both,
They're both
So,
very good.
yeah.
So, just a possibility. If you don't want
and I
to
like
do,
Eric's good guy.
if you don't want to do all of this stuff yourself, like they gave us a great deal in.
Well, no, we won't run the foundation, that's
No.
what community foundations do, so we want that.
I mean, bigger libraries have their own foundations, but then they have to hire a foundation director and all that stuff, and that's,
Now, we want a place for people to put their excess money that
Yeah.
they would like to
Yeah.
give to their library, so.
well, have it be offered to them as an option.
Yeah.
Because that's, you, people to
We
think
want
about
to
it.
make sure Scott's request has a place to go.
Yeah.
That's right, that's right. How many sorters can I buy with the millions?
Find a place
We'll
to
name it
put
after
his
you.
name.
No, I would not buy a
The
sorter
memorial
named
sorter,
after
Scott.
you. It would have to be something much more interesting, so. And that was a compliment.
Well, I know all of this is a compliment, but
Yeah.
I prefer no names.
Okay, so we're good on the library district and good on the board?
Yes.
Follow up so far on the feasibility. Okay, Nancy, tell us what you know about board minutes.
I don't know as much as I can, but I have a meeting tomorrow. They couldn't give it to me before then with the city clerk, because I gave them what I had, and they at first said, no, ours are right, and then supposedly, once they dug into it, they found a reason for the discrepancies, and so we are meeting tomorrow in person. So I will get back to you ASAP, and, because I said that there's no reason that one should be 5 years and one should be 3 years. And I understand about finishing terms, and so that's the first time they could give me an appointment.
Because I have a letter that says 5 years from them.
I know you do. I told
Certificate
them
and all that
specifically
stuff,
that you
yeah.
did. So, that it was 3. So I have a meeting with them tomorrow.
Maybe I should hold them to that 5 years. What do you think? You're gonna regret it.
They may
And-
make it a year.
Yeah, right.
And also, that bleeds into letter F, because they're the same ones that change the meeting date things. They change it in some spots, and they're still wrong on the main, library page.
So
So I will.
that'll
that-
also be
that-
addressed
That is
in your
also
meeting.
coming tomorrow, because I'm going to be in their office.
Okay, fair enough. Comments from the board on anything?
I hope that we can, for those of us who aren't able to be involved with this effort, I mean, I don't have time, but,
Cool.
that you can keep us updated.
Oh, yeah. How do we do that in a way that we're keeping with sunshine laws? How do we do that?
You know, I have to figure that out, because it's gonna have to, I mean, you're not gonna be able to do it as an official,
Yeah, I can't put them on a mailing list, so.
you can't, I mean, you can
That's-
put them on,
you know
you can
what?
put them on a
That's
mailing
where
list
we
for your
had
own.
trouble with Slack last
Yeah.
time.
You can put it,
I was gonna say,
you can
you
put it
can't
on
use
a, yeah, you can't do that.
But we
So-
could have a public website.
You could have a public website, absolutely. We did that in, where was I? Yeah, Bakersfield, where we had a website for the kind of vote yes.
And I gotta give the city credit here, their Engage Longmont website's not a bad thing, and
No,
we
it's
could
not.
use that. We use that to gather questions for the mayoral and city council
No, I think it's a
debates
good site.
we're putting on, and we got some interesting responses.
And that's
So-
often where you want to get the basic advice from a
Yes.
local attorney that's in, and they really laid it out for us in Kern County and said, here is what you can, here are the basics of what you can do, and here's what you absolutely can't do. And that was useful,
Yeah, we need that, so,
yeah.
okay.
So if this is a board-driven activity,
It really can't be a board-driven activity. The board can support it, but depending on which state you're into, this is why we need a
Okay.
Colorado
Fair
person.
We don't,
The board can support it using X% of their time.
we also don't.
Same with
have-
friends.
Well, I don't know if that's
they
true,
say
because
It may not be
put it as
true
an
here.
addendum to
It may
our
not be true
meeting
here.
minutes.
we have no fiduciary responsibility, so
Yeah.
we aren't actually.
We weren't governing.
We're not really a board.
That's
We're an
true.
advisory
Advisory.
council
Yeah.
committee. So we can, honestly, we can do anything we want, really. We can pretty much. I mean, we have to obey the sunshine laws, we have to do all
Yeah.
of those things.
Yeah.
But there's nothing limiting what
Yeah.
any one of us or the group of us can do.
And then, you know,
Outside of
once
this
things get,
meeting.
once things get further, as far as library staff go, you know, we can educate but not advocate.
Yes,
And there are
that's
certain things like library staff would be, it'd be perfectly fine for us to hand out your flyers that say, you know, you could even go as far as to say, if this was our budget, if we were to have this amount of money, here are some of the things we would do with it.
Well,
You
this
can't
is-
say it for sure.
There is a model already in place here.
Absolutely.
It's called Next Life.
Yeah.
Longmont did this
Yep.
already, and LP, you know, Longmont
Yep.
Power Communication did all of these things.
Yep.
And they worked closely with my group, which was called Friends of Fiber. Fiber,
Yep.
it's good for you. Fiber, it's good for you. And
That's-
they didn't like
did you-
that.
did
They
they
didn't
listen?
like that one.
I think that's right.
Association.
But we really helped push that through, that group.
Yeah.
And they worked closely with us to help distribute our stuff. And so there's a model already that the city has done
Yeah.
before.
So you, on our meeting minutes or an addendum to our meeting minutes, we couldn't create something that says, like, local activities involving the Longmont Library. And for those, I mean, you can post anything there, but you could post this sort of thing there. And that would be like a common
You probably could.
thing that you could get the information out, and you wouldn't necessarily fall into sticky issues with the city. Would you do something like that?
I don't know. I would think so, but I'm not an attorney.
Well, the first
So
thing.
you just have to be careful because there are people who are gonna be the vote no
That's
people no matter
their-
what, who
yeah.
are gonna be looking for whatever mistakes you made, and libraries across the country have been
Well-
sued lots of times.
We wouldn't necessarily endorse it, we would just be communicating activities involving,
I think you could say that
The
this
library is local.
library advocacy group is meeting at this time.
Yeah, it's not going to be related to this board. It's going to be something that we do outside.
Yep.
This board will be involved, or
Yep.
some people on it will be involved. But I'm involved in many things. This is one of many things I do. So, and that's true of all of you. So there shouldn't be any conflict, should not be an issue. So yes, the answer is absolutely.
This is information.
Yeah.
You're allowed to do that.
anything else? Councilman, anything for us? See you tomorrow. With that, 8:31, we're adjourned.
Scott, were you
Next
focusing on these
meeting is
interviews?
October 18th.
They are,
Thank you, Mike.
Good luck tomorrow.
they're going up.
You sure you don't need this for our school?